Hello and welcome to Nice Ethereal Epiphanies. This is, I believe, the third day of January. The sun is going to set today at, I believe, 4:53 or 4:48, one of those two. So I made it outside just before. Welcome to my channel. This is where I talk about all the things. So my Ethereal Epiphanies are just me talking about life, psychology, whatever's in my mind. And I take these Ethereal Epiphanies and I write about them. But today, I'm actually doing my hat. Today, I'm actually doing a reverse Ethereal Epiphany because today I'm talking about love, and I've actually already written about this. But I wrote a very short Ethereal Epiphany on this that I think is worth turning into an essay. So I'll just give you some background about this subject. So I'm neurodivergent, and I believe, like, for many, especially that maybe are autistic, have ADHD, other disorders, it may be difficult to navigate in a world where we say things out of pleasantries, because for so many of us that are neurodivergent, we may be a little bit blunt and very logical, very analytical, very direct, very blunt. And for many of us, the pleasantries of society do not come so easy. And it's something that maybe we have to learn, or that for some of us, we never learn, right? So recently, I wrote about how I had a conversation with a family member so actually, let me just go back a little bit. So this Ethereal Epiphany, it's already written, by the way, and I want to do a long form essay based on this one. So this one was called Love Without Action. And I believe I posted this like on my website, nayamoss.com, NAYAMOSS.com. I'm gonna put it somewhere here. Especially if you love to read. I try to at least post a couple of days per week, my Ethereal Epiphanies and other things, and my atomic essays. So for this one, and by the way, I actually, if it's not too long, I think I want to actually read this one to you, or at least like half of it. So I wrote this Ethereal Epiphany, and it's titled Love Without Action. I named it that because, to go back, because I was talking to a family member, and they had said, oh, but so-and-so loves you so much. And I said, really? How do you know that they love me? I mean, just because they say it does not mean that they actually love me. And so I had a conversation with a friend who I told about this conversation, and the friend said, you know what, that's a really different take on things. So many times I feel like in society, just because someone is your parent, your grandparent, your aunt, your bloodline, etc., you might feel an obligation to say I love you. Or if you're a parent, because you have your kid, you feel obligated to say I love you. And I think in some ways that might be a good thing, to let your child know that you love them. But my big point in this conversation is that what is saying love without action? Because love is both a noun and a verb, right? So that means that love is not, it's something that you have for something, place, person, etc., but it's also something that you do, right? So this was my argument to the other person, is that I was saying, well, that's only half of loving someone, right? Just because you say it out your mouth does not mean that you actually have that for someone, or it's not something that you do towards someone, right? So I can keep saying, I love my math teacher so much, but if my math teacher asked me, like, oh, well, how do you love me? And why do you love me? And I can't answer that, or even the fact that they had to ask, I think that's a clear indication that you do not, in fact, love that person. If someone has to question how you've shown love to them, then I think that's a clear indication that maybe perhaps you don't love them. And just to give some background about me, I have many people in my life. All right, sorry, one second. I realize that you all might not be able to hear me because my headphones are behind my ear. So yeah, so just to go back a little bit, I used to get lots of flack for this because growing up, I did not tell people that I love them. I still don't, unless I feel it. Because I don't believe that you should say something that you don't mean, which a lot of us do all the time, but especially the word love. I feel like love is so strong. You should not say you love someone if you don't actually feel that way, right? Like, why just say it as a pleasantry to make the other person feel better when that's not something that you feel? So growing up, I had many instances where adults in my life would be upset that I didn't say I love you, or that they would say I love you to me, and I'd be like, you too. And now I could laugh about it, and I know it's actually not funny, it's actually hurtful, but I just didn't know what else to say. And even to this day, I still struggle. Do I say that's nice? I go, oh. But also, I only do that if I don't really know the person, because I've had coworkers, I'd be like, love you. I'm just like, because it's so weird. Like, how can you say you love me when you've not shown it? Like, why say that? Just say goodbye, you know? That's the way I always felt. So anyway, so growing up, people would get upset at me because they'd be like, oh, you don't say I love you. By the way, I didn't tell either one of my parents. Maybe I said it as a very young child, but you know, I always say I think 5 is when we gain our consciousness that we have a right to do what we do and say. You know, I think that's the starting age, maybe, when you realize. I mean, actually, it's probably 2, but I say 5 is when you realize, oh, I can say something else than what my parents are telling me, or I have my own mind, right? So I can't speak for when I was very young, but for as long as I can remember, I never told my parents I loved them because I didn't really feel that. I'm just being honest. I did not feel that. I didn't feel they loved me. So I'm not saying it back to you because I don't feel it either. Just being honest, right? So, and I know that many of you might feel like, oh, that's mean, and, you know, you should love your parents and blah, blah, blah. But everyone has a different situation. And for me, I feel like for me to say I love you, there has to be a mutual thing, right? Even when I think about it too, like one of my grandmothers, I've never said I love you. The other one, I didn't say it until a couple years ago. I also don't like hugs. Do not hug me. I've gotten much better with hugs and stuff. Much, much better. But for a very long time, I was like, do not touch me. For a very long time, I was like that. But over time, also, I would say in the past 5 years, I've been up and down. If I really feel love from someone, and I feel trust from them, I'm okay with. Everyone calls it the Naya hug, which is I do this, I hold my body away from you, and I like a little pat on your neck. It's a Naya hug. Keep the distance. It's really funny how many people, even people that don't know each other, call my hugs the Naya hug, which is really funny. But yeah, to go back, yeah, I didn't really tell my parents. In fact, I probably said it less than 5 times to each of them. In fact, to one of my parents, I don't even, have I ever said it? Maybe when I was a kid. But my thing is that I don't think, for me, I feel like it's not fair to say something that you don't mean to someone. I don't like when people say, oh, I love your sweater, or your sweater is so nice, and you hate it. Like, why say that? Why lie to them when you can just find something you actually like about them and be honest, right? So that's something that for me, and I wouldn't even really call this a struggle. I just feel like it's a different way of thinking and being. So anyway, so to go back, in both of these conversations, my thing is that we were talking about this other family member, and even with the other person, I was telling them about this family member who, you know, the family keeps saying, oh, this person loves you, oh, this person loves you, oh, you know, this person loves you. I'm like, okay, but they only say it. Just because you say it doesn't mean that it's actually true. There's also things that people say that are not true. If I felt it, then fine. But your actions, right? Because remember I mentioned earlier that love is something you, I guess, say and do. And that's and, not say or do, right? It's not that you say it, and because you say it, it's true. It's you say it, but also the things that you do and your actions make it true as something as you actually do. So talking about this other person, I just asked a thought provoking question. I said, well, okay, they say that a lot, but can you explain to me in ways that you've seen that they've shown their love? And the person's, no, like they really do. Like, I'm telling you, they really care for you. They really love you. Okay. How? How? Can you give me 3 examples? Okay. Can you give me one example of how without them saying it? Saying it is not a how, right? It's not an action that they're doing. And so in both of these conversations, both people were like, dang, you're kind of right. That's true. It's not something that you just say. It's something you have to do. You have to have actions behind the word of love. So in talking about the same person, I said, well, the reason why I feel like this person says it but doesn't do it is because this person has not showed any actions towards love. None of their actions have shown me love besides them just saying it. So for example, the way I would say that I know that someone loves me is not only like what they do for me, but how they treat me, how they care for me, so like when I think of like love, and it like maybe from not even a parent or friend, right? One of my friends, I know she loves me. I could say this. And and I don't really even say or feel love for someone else I've known under 10 years. Have I known her for 10 years now? It's 2025. No. Yeah, so under 10 years I've known my friend. And I can really say I love her and she loves me. And the reason why I say that is because we give to each other in many different ways. Whether it's being there to listen, also the way we respect each other, right? So when one of us is going through something, we always check in. Hey, is it okay if I talk to you about this thing? Are you in the right headspace to talk about this? Because if not, I don't want to push my anxiety on you if it's not something that you can handle right now, right? And I'll give you an example. The same friend, I was going through something at the time, and I had a really bad habit of like when I was going through something, I would just like constantly talk about it all the time and constantly freak out and constantly have anxiety about it. And every waking moment I was talking about it. And I realized I was pushing my anxiety on this person. And I started to realize, oh, they were doing lots of like things. Like as we would talk, they would do things that would show that they're also anxious. And so I realized like, oh my gosh, I think I'm like pushing my anxiety on this person. I think my anxiety is also making them anxious. And this is not something that they can handle right now. And so I stopped talking to them about these things. And I said to them one day, I said, does it make you anxious when I talk to you about these things? And she said, you know what? I think it does. And it's also traumatic for me too. Like I had learned from her that she got like secondhand trauma from my trauma. Now the thing is that she was also in the same environment, but it wasn't happening to her, it was happening to me. And so just the fact that she saw it with her own eyes, she was around me and I was talking about it, she probably had just about the same amount of trauma as I did with the situation. And I probably made it worse by constantly talking to her about it. And so me showing love to her is recognizing that what I'm doing is affecting you as a person. So I have to stop. And since that happened, and I apologized and we spoke about it. And, I said to her, I said, I realized like you're doing like how I fidget when I'm extremely nervous. You only do that when I'm talking about this thing. And I'm starting to realize like, oh my gosh, me talking about this thing to you is making you anxious. And so from that time on, we always check in with each other. So it doesn't mean that we stopped venting to each other, but I feel like from that time on, we were more respectful in how we vented and how we spoke to each other about things that might bring on trauma and anxiety. And so I feel like that is love, right? I'm making sure that my actions do not negatively affect this other person. I'm making sure that I'm not only worried about myself, right? Like if I just kept talking about this thing, knowing that it's causing harm or negativity to the next person to the point where it's affecting them and their health, that's not love, right? that's just me caring about myself. So it's love because I'm making sure that, okay, listen, I'm not okay, but I want you to be okay. You know, you shouldn't have to also go through trauma because I'm going through it. And if I can protect you and care for you in some form of way by setting boundaries during these times, to me, that is love. I have so many other examples, but this is just something, and this is a relationship where I feel like there's love, right? Also, on that person's end, anytime I need anything to talk about, even if this person does not agree, they would listen respectfully or hear something respectfully and would just be honest and say, well, I don't really agree with that, and it's not something that I understand, or it's not something that I agree with, or X, Y, and Z. And we can have those kind of disagreements or different views on something and walk away and still love each other and be friends. We can also have times when maybe one of us has done something wrong, and we can take time apart and still come back and be friends. And even more so, and I think from, you know, woman to woman, I personally I've not really had too many long-term woman friends, because, and I hate to be like the whole jealousy thing, but now that I'm older, you know, when I was younger, I used to, you know, try not to think that other people were jealous, but now that I'm older, lots of people are jealous of the smallest, craziest things, and you're sitting there. Oh, I think my Amazon package just came. You know, and you're sitting there, you know, thinking that you're just being yourself, and homegirl over there is planting your demise because she's jealous of you reading books or something, or you being smart, or I don't know, or you having full lips or something, you know. So I don't like to talk too much about being jealous, but as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, yeah, there are many people who are jealous of certain things. But what I do love is that I've had long-term friendships with women who I never felt jealousy from, and I was never jealous of them. And we treated each other like equals, and we loved each other very much, again, in our actions and how we treated each other. And I'm so thankful for those friendships and those relationships. And now that I think about it, all of my women friends that I've been friends with for over 5 years, we all love each other, like individually, as our own individual relationship. And these are all people that I would trust if I was at the end of my life and I needed someone to like organize my finance. I'm broke now, but you know, organize my finances or something. I would trust any of them, hands down, over my own parents, by the way. I would not trust neither of my parents with none of my money, none of it. In fact, at this age, I should have a will saying, well, you know, I did have a will before, but I need an updated will saying that neither one of those two people should even come near me when I'm at the end of my life or something like that. I'm being funny, but also kind of serious. But anyway, just to go back to the whole love thing. So yeah, anyway, I'm hoping through all of this, I'm so curious how you all feel about these things. Do you agree? Do you disagree that love is something that you show and do and not just say? Also, do you have like friendships and relationships that you definitely feel love for the other person? And if so, what does that mean to you? Because another thing I did mention is like money, right? Because, oh, this is a good one. I missed this earlier. Okay. When I was younger, someone that I know that was in close age to one of my parents, and by the way, both my parents are only 15 years older than me, 15 years older than me. So we grew up like together, basically. They were children having children, literally. And I'll never forget, this one person has said to me, and no one really knew what I was going through. No one, even to this day, I've never really told people the horrors that I've been through as a child. I'll never forget, this one lady was like, oh, or this woman, she was like, oh, you know, you have so much love and blah blah blah. Look, you have all this stuff. You have nice things. You have a coat. You have nice shoes. You have X, Y, and Z. I'll never forget. I said to her, "You're mentioning material things. How is money and material things love?" And she was like, "Well, if a person don't love you, they wouldn't give you this stuff." I said, also, sometimes when someone feels bad for not properly loving you, they give you this stuff. And when I tell you, yo, this lady hated me for so long. Because all the time she would say stuff like that, and I would always like come back at her with like a counter question, or a, what's the word I'm looking for? A contrarian view. Because it was so crazy to me that you think that giving someone something nice materially is love. It can be an act of love alongside other acts, right? But if you mistreat somebody, you tell them you hate them, you wish they were dead, X, Y, and Z, but then you give them something nice later, that's not love. In fact, I think I also said to this person, I said, oh, so like when a rich husband beats his wife, you think that he loves her? That's love? It's love when you hit somebody and you treat them really badly, but then you give them nice material stuff? That's love to you? I didn't, I said it like that. I was like, that's love to you? Wow, I didn't know that was love. And when I tell you, oh my gosh, this person, but really, really hilarious. I think maybe like a couple years ago, I think it was during the pandemic, this person reached out to me and they actually apologized for all these things they said when I was a kid. Because I think they finally realized I was right about a lot of things. But you know what? I think that's, I don't know, my brain just always thinks differently. Like whatever everyone else is thinking, I'm like, Are you thinking that because you're told to think that, or because that's how you feel, right? Going back to the whole love theme. Do you just say love, that you love somebody because you know that's the right thing to say, or is it because you actually feel it? You have to ask yourself that. Again, I think that also goes culturally. I'm mainly speaking about here in the United States because now that I've traveled around, I see it's other countries. I don't know, from my experience, it's not so common to say I love you. I think now things are changing a lot, but I kind of like that view, like that you shouldn't say I love you unless you actually feel it, unless you feel it and you show it. Because one thing I was thinking about too is that I think some people think if you say it enough times, it means that you do. And I think sometimes people confuse saying it enough times with actually doing it. But yeah, before, because I realized this is, I didn't mean to talk for this long, but before this goes on to 40 minutes and the sun goes down, in exactly 3 minutes, the sun is supposed to set or start setting in 3 minutes. And I see the 5 o'clock shadow is arriving, so that's how I know. Let's see, that's how I know that it's getting late. So I said earlier that I wanted to read to you part of this Ethereal Epiphany that I wrote, and how I want to turn this into a longer form essay. I know I still haven't wrote my essay on intellectual loneliness, and that's because I want to do a little bit more research on it. I don't want it to only be about me and my life, but I want to speak to some other people and interview some folks first before I finish that essay. Because if you're new here, if you know, like when I write, I love to include research, and I really want to get some other people's take on this as well. So that's why I'm kind of like, sometimes an essay, like a long form essay, can take me weeks to months to write because I'm still doing research. I'm trying to find different views on things and all. So yeah, that's why I haven't done that yet. But I have the structure. I have some parts of it, but I could publish it as it is right now, but I really want to include what other people have to say in their experiences. So, by the way, if you're new here, I did a video on intellectual loneliness, so I'll link that somewhere. And if you watch that video, and you felt like you've experienced it, I would love to hear your experience. You can either share it in the comment section of this video or that video, or you can email me, and I would actually even love to talk to you about it, because I would love to really hear some stories of other people. And if it's something that you realize that you were going through and you didn't know of this term and phrase until recently, I'd love to hear about that. So anyway, as I said, it's getting late now. So I said to you earlier, I want to read to you a part of the first Ethereal Epiphany I wrote, called Love Without Action. So, all right, sorry, I guess I don't mean to look down for so long. This is quite a lot. So, and I'll link to the full Ethereal Epiphany inside of the description. So I wrote, have you ever noticed how I love you can be one of the most powerful phrases someone says to you, but only if it's backed by action. Without action, those 3 words lose their meaning. They become empty, a hollow promise that doesn't hold up in real life. The thing is, love isn't something you say to make it true. Didn't I say that 3 times in this video? Because that's how I really feel. Okay. It's something you show through consistent actions. It's in the way you treat someone, how you prioritize them, and the care you give when they need it most. The word should be a reflection of the love that's already there, not a placeholder for something you're not actually doing. I was talking with a friend recently about this, and we got into made a mistake there. I should say a deep discussion, discussing parent-child relationships. We were talking about how sometimes parents might say they love their kids, but it seems more like a moral obligation because their actions don't show love. For example, if a parent actively makes a plethora of bad decisions in their life that keeps them away from their child, or doesn't allow them to properly take care of their child, then is it really love? So I'm curious, like, how do you all feel about this? Do you feel, and I'm so curious, like, maybe culturally, do you feel different? Do you feel that, no, regardless, you should feel love? You should say that you love this person or this family member, etc. But, this whole thing I was talking about, here, just to give some background, when I was having these 2 conversations as well, my whole point was that, for example, as I said in this Ethereal Epiphany, if a parent says, oh, I love my child, I love my child, I love my child, but you don't make decisions that allow you to be present in your child's life, then do you love them? Like, for example, I think I was watching like reality TV one time, and I think it was like a mom that was on drugs for many years, and she kept saying she loves her daughter, she loves her daughter. But in my head, I was thinking, now, okay, I do recognize that there are many things that happen in life that causes someone to fall into depression, drugs, alcoholism, etc. That is a real thing, right? And I know that sometimes poverty can even fuel that, trauma, abuse. There's so many reasons why people get into those things, right? And maybe even as parents, like, some parents become parents and they didn't want to become parents. So because of that, they're depressed, and maybe they get into drugs and they drink and they do all this stuff because they didn't want to be a parent. And now you got the screaming baby, And so my point is that when it comes to a parent, though, like this mom who was on drugs, I think it's very different if you don't have help available, or you have to do certain things alone as a parent. You see, now it's getting dark. If you have to do certain things alone as a parent, and you fall into a place of drugs and alcohol, etc., I think that's, believe it or not, I can find that understandable. But I think it's one thing if you were offered help and you were offered to get clean and get your life right, etc., and you had a plethora of people behind you trying to get you well so you can be around your kids, but you still chose the drugs and the alcohol and etc. Now, again, no offense to anyone on here who might be actually going through that right now. That's why I said I actually understand. But it's a little bit hard for me to understand when you have access to help and you have access to love and support and etc., and you choose not to do that, and you have a child to take care of. Like, for me, I feel like that shows a lack of love. Because if you're choosing drugs and alcohol, etc., over being there and present for your children, and I'm not talking about, children that are adults. I mean, if you have young children to take care of and they're staying with their grandparents or aunts and uncles or being passed around the system because you won't accept help, it's just my opinion. I could be wrong, and I love for someone to challenge me on this. My thing is that's not you loving your child. In that time frame and during that time, you do not love your child. Because if you loved your child, you would make actions, right? It's not something that you only say. You would make actions behind your words and do your best to make sure that you're there for your child. That's the way I feel. So, for example, in that, reality TV show with that mom, I'm sure at some point she felt love for that child, but during that time frame, did she actually love her child when she had access to get help and support, and she refused because she would rather drown her life out in these things? I don't know. I just feel like that's not love. So that's what I had to say on this. And so the reason why I wanted to do an essay on love as an action, and the whole, love without action, and turn that into a longer form essay, is because when I was going through something in Europe, something that I kept saying about certain people in my life is, I know what true love is, and this is not love. I kept saying that. And I had so much to say on this because I saw firsthand how many people think that that just because they say, no, I love you, that it means that they actually do in their actions. And, I would say that about a couple people, because they would say things like, no, I love you, I really care for you, I love you. And I'd be like, yeah, but what you're doing is not love. The way you're treating me is not love. The way you're gaslighting me is not love. The way that you are refusing to believe that racism exists, it is not love, right? Like, how can you deny something that you will probably never experience, or that you will never experience the way I experience it? That's not love. Love is you trying to see my side and what I'm going through, doing the research on something that you know nothing about, right? To me, that would be love. But I would say to these folks, I know what true love is. I've had love. I may not have felt love from my parents, but I have felt love my entire life. So many people in my life that showed me true love. And so I want to write an essay on this about how I know what true love is. I know what love feels like, and I know what it does not feel like. And I love that for myself, that I can say I know what love is. I know what it feels like to love someone else and to be loved. And again, I don't think that love has anything to do with the monetary things in life or with money. I always think it's your actions. So I'm going to be doing some research on this soon as well. And I really want to write, I actually might finish this one first before my intellectual loneliness essay, but I really want to do an essay on this of like how, yeah, I know what true love is. I know what love is and what it's not. And I'm so happy that I've experienced both, because I think sometimes too, when you haven't had something really great, you don't, okay, what's the, I'm trying to say here is that, how like sometimes, okay, I have an example. Have you ever grew up like where at times you didn't have something, or like you didn't have much, and let's say you got the store brand ice cream, and you're like, man, this is the best ice cream ever. Oh man, I love this ice cream. Wow, this is some great ice cream. And then you have Haagen-Dazs, or what's the other one, gelato, or like a really nice ice cream, And then you're like, well, dang, what was I eating before? If this is real ice cream, what was that before? I think sometimes in life, when you don't experience the best, you don't know that you haven't experienced it. Does that make sense? I'm trying to, you know what? I have to figure out a way to say this, but what I'm trying to say is that I think when it comes to love, sometimes you don't know what true love is until you experience it. That's what I'm trying to say, is that sometimes you might experience some things and you think, wow, this is the best. This is awesome. Until you experience something better, and then you're like, oh, actually, this is really the best. And it can maybe get even better than this, but you wouldn't know unless you experienced it. So that's what I was trying to say. Hope that made sense. Anyway, now it's cold and now it's dark, and even my fingers is cold. Like, I could barely even move them. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Ethereal Epiphany. As I mentioned, if you want to read I read half of it on here, but if you want to read the full post, I'm gonna link it below. And thank you for all of you. I'm seeing a lot of you are returning subscribers, so thank you for coming back and listening to my Ethereal Epiphanies. I hope that you have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a comment and say what you liked about it. Also, hit the like button. Also, if you didn't like what I said too, you can still like the video and still leave a comment and tell me what you didn't like. I would appreciate both either way. So anyway, have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are, and talk soon. Bye.